Right now, you can get any queen size premium MyPillow regularly $69.98 for only $29.98. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square. Don't forget to use the promo code Carter. Thanks for joining the show today. I want you to all to make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube and everywhere else. And please sign up for my newsletter. This is the Sara Carter Show. And I want to stay in touch with you. And now our nation is like literally being hijacked. Our First Amendment is being hijacked. I don't know what's going on here. I feel like I woke up in an upside down world in a nightmare. I don't understand it. I know that everyone else I've been talking to pretty much feels the same way. I was in Florida with my family for a few days. The free state of Florida. That's what I call it right now. The free state of Florida. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. What a great governor there. People very respectful, people very happy compared to Washington, D.C. I'm sure all of you out there, please send me emails. Let me know how life is going for you in your states outside of this nut house that we have in Washington, D.C. right now. But people in Florida were worried. They were watching, they're watching the news just like everyone else. They're seeing, I'm going to be talking about this later on, the 25,000 National Guard troops. God bless our soldiers and our National Guard being put in such a terrible position. All of our troops. I mean, it's a tough situation. They're not overseas in the war zone. They're in Washington, D.C. And it's a horrible situation to be in when you are in the military, to be guarding against your own, right? That fear. Americans, these are your people, right? This is your country. You're protecting them. That's why you joined, the military. So we got to think about that. Got to think about what's going on with our National Guard troops down there in Washington, D.C. And remember, they are us, right? They are us. This is our country. These are our young men and women who are serving our nation. I don't want to forget that. But before I go any further, I want to talk to you about AMAC. That is the Association of Mature American Citizens. And they are a great sponsor of this podcast. It is the fastest growing conservative 50-plus organization in America. In just a few short years, over 2 million, listen to that, 2 million people have joined and now carry the AMAC membership card. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers without the liberal agenda, folks, without any liberal agenda. AMAC constantly reviews legislative proposals, and if they align with conservative principles and our missions, AMAC offers support. If not, guess what? They voice their opposition. AMAC takes a stand in Washington to address important issues like healthcare reform, immigration, and border protection. All these stories that I covered, even fixing Social Security, reducing prescription drug costs, and so much more. Look, I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter, amac.us/CARTER. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Let's talk about what's happening now in our nation. As you all know, and I've talked about this before, my husband, Marty, amazing, amazing man, such a great patriot, he's everything to me. He is my hero. When he joined the military, he took an oath. He took an oath to defend this nation against enemies, foreign and domestic. He took an oath. And right now, I am looking at a story, which is up on my website, saracarter.com. It's written by Annalise Levy. Go on there and read it, please, folks. FBI reportedly vetting National Guard troops in D.C. amid fears of insider attack. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what it feels like to be a National Guard soldier, to be defending your country, being called to Washington, D.C., and then being told that the FBI is vetting you. Vetting you for what? Vetting you for what? You haven't committed any crimes. You're an American citizen. Why are they vetting you? Oh, they want to make sure what? that you didn't support President Trump? What's going on here? Why are they, and I'm talking about they being the Democrats, the media that's on their side, the Republican rhinos, let's not leave them out, right? Turning people who supported Trump, which, by the way, was over 74 million, nearly 75 million, it's give or take, right in there. Basically targeting Trump supporters in the media. This is a disinformation campaign and calling them terrorists. By the way, our good old friend, remember? Good old fired Andrew McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI who lied to everybody, lied to the inspector general, lied to the Department of Justice, went after Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, spied on everyone. That guy that was involved in the Russia hoax, who never was held accountable, by the way, never held accountable by the Department of Justice, because guess what? We live in a two-tiered justice system. I am not joking. You all know this. I'm not even just saying this. And guess what? I have a right to say it because I'm an American. And Andy McCabe, if you're listening to me and if you and your friends at the FBI think that, threatening Americans, and I'll talk to you about that in a little bit, by calling them ISIS terrorists. He said Trump supporters resemble ISIS terrorists. This rhetoric is dangerous. It's dangerous to you. It's dangerous to me. It's dangerous to our children. What kind of nation are we living in? Let me talk to you a little bit first about the FBI's vetting of all 25,000 National Guard members. By the way, FBI, vet yourselves. Vet yourselves. There is corruption inside that bureau, and we exposed it for the last 4 years. Corruption that I never suspected existed anymore. This is ridiculous, but they're vetting. So we've got 25,000 National Guard members in DC, and I'm going to tell you this. When I was in Afghanistan, I look at DC now. I'm not far from DC. I live in Virginia. And I go to DC and I see all the shops boarded up. Nobody on the streets. Jenny Terr, who works with me, she was posting video. You got to follow her. Jenny S. Terr on the now censored platform of Twitter. Sometimes she does get things up there. And so, there's nobody out there, and you got these huge fences, these barricades, which the Democrats don't want you to have, by the way. They don't want you to have a fence. They don't want you to have a barricade. They want to have the barricades. They want the guys with guns, but they don't want you to have a gun. Think about that, folks. But it looks like a forward operating base in Afghanistan. That's what it looks like to me. Our capital, our state capital, the Capitol building, and everything else in the White House looks like they have created forward operating bases in our state capital. In Afghanistan, that's where the troops would be at before they would deploy out to the front lines. A lot of times, you have 2,000, sometimes on some of the bigger forward operating bases, troops on there. And, Afghan forces in Kandahar, you'd have a lot of mix, people from Jordan, Germany, United States, different troops from all over the world that kind of base there. Then they move out into the war zone. But I got to tell you this, what's different? Usually at some of the biggest, and I think I'm pretty right on this. And I went over it with some people that would have known and that do know, because I was on those bases. There would be roughly around the parameter around 1,000 to 1,200 soldiers at the biggest forward operating bases in Afghanistan. That's the biggest. That's guarding against Al-Qaeda. That's guarding against Islamic State. That's guarding against Taliban and whatever other threats are out there. 25,000 in Washington, D.C. What is the message being sent out? What are we saying about our nation when we put 25,000 National Guard members in the nation's capital for Inauguration Day after concerns of a possible insider attack? Let me tell you, every time I was in Afghanistan, there would be calls for, we got all of this intel coming into a base. Hey, Sara, I know you guys are heading out to this part of the border, but we're getting all this intel. So you would get enormous amounts of intel of threats that are possibly out there. 80% were probably just chatter, chit chat, chatter all over the place, right? Chatter all over the place. And then they throw it out because it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. It's just not good intel. And then you have another 10%, that would be 80 to 90% that you would make, or maybe 15%. So that would get you up to 95%. So you get another 15% of intel that's probably like, okay, we better take this seriously. Let's look into it. Let's make sure that none of this happens. There isn't an IED out on the road. There isn't something going on in this village. There's not going to be a suicide bomber at this bazaar. We got to check all of this out, clarify. Let's get it done so we don't lose any troops. And then you have like a 5% bit of intel that could be very real, very threatening. In the United States, the way that they're guarding the inauguration, it's almost like another country is going to come and invade us there. So I don't know what the intel is. I don't know if it's like they've got like groups out there that they think there's like a whole group of MAGA people that are working together. I believe that the real threat would be more lone wolf. But you have to ask yourself, how are the soldiers who are out there, soldiers, I'll say troops because there's probably people beyond the army there. Troops, how are they feeling about being there and how dangerous this situation could be and how it could escalate, right? Because we already saw that happen, unfortunately. We already saw that happen on January 6th. We have to be very, very careful about what is going on here. We have to be very, very careful about our nation and where it is headed. We cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. We cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. That means you don't throw everything away. Our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights. People are still allowed to conceal carry. You can. You actually can conceal carry. But they're even making people who have weapons on them sound like they're terrorists. Folks, this is the United States of America. This is the United States of America. We don't just give up. We don't just throw everything away because we're scared. But we've seen that. We've seen that with COVID. We've seen that now with President Trump. We're seeing an escalation against our own citizens. These are our people from all over the world that have come here to make a life. Americans who believe in this nation and who came here because of the Constitution and because of our Bill of Rights and because of our justice system, which they believed and I believed was uncorruptible until the last few years. And it's pretty scary to me because I didn't believe that there was a two-tier justice system until recently. But we are still allowed to talk about it. We are not a threat. We are Americans. That's how we fix our system. We discuss it publicly. We talk about things. So people out there, if you're listening to me, if anybody is planning violence, absolutely wrong. That is not the way to handle this. No, not at all. We talk, though, and we are allowed to talk and we are allowed to believe. I have a great guest with me today. Montana, love the state of Montana. Absolutely love it. Got so many friends there. Montana Congressman Matt Rosendale. I'm looking at the story where it says he's already proven in his first week and a half in office that he is not afraid to call out the establishment and stand up for the Montana voters who sent him there. He went after Cheney. I know, well, let's talk about this because we have a big problem. I can't wait to bring him on. Liz Cheney is the House GOP conference chair, and she voted for impeachment of President Trump. And she was one of those, I think it was 10, who voted for President Trump to be impeached, Rhino Republicans. And he is basically fighting her, says she should be out of as House GOP conference chair. And she's not the only one. I know Jim Jordan and a lot of others are saying we don't want her there anymore. Andy Biggs, I know, is another congressman from Arizona that has said that. Jim Jordan, by the way, from Ohio. So I'm very, very happy to have with me today Congressman Matt Rosendale from the great and beautiful, beautiful state of Montana. I'm really happy to have Congressman Matt Rosendale from the great and beautiful state of Montana. We right now, the FBI is vetting the 25,000 National Guard members up on Capitol Hill in the city of, in the capital of our country, in Washington, D.C. There's concern that people who supported Trump or who are part of the administration or close to Trump are actually being monitored. I mean, this is I've never imagined that this would be the America that I lived in, not even a few years ago.
No, this I am very disturbed by it. When I saw the show of force last week, where we brought the National Guards in to try and make sure that the city was calm, and there were 6,000 troops brought in, stationed around the city, and they were not armed. They did not have helmets. There was not additional fencing put up. There was no armored vehicles in the streets. It was just to bring a calm about the city, and I could certainly understand that. But we took a huge leap in the middle of the week when I saw the 20,000 guardsmen arrive armed, ARs on pretty much every corner, every couple of feet, the armored vehicles coming in, razor wire around our nation's capital. It's a disturbing image.
It is a disturbing image. And I was actually talking about that at the opening of the show here, going back to my time in Afghanistan. My husband is a wounded war veteran. He served our nation, was blinded in 2011 in Afghanistan during battle with terrorists in the eastern part of the country. I spent a lot of my years covering the war zone. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. I even covered ISIS in Iraq and the horrors of the Islamic State against the Yazidi people and, all the soldiers that we've lost. But I told everyone, and I'm going to repeat it again here for every one of you out there that's never been in a war zone, and I hope you never will, even the forward operating bases in Afghanistan did not have that many soldiers guarding it. Usually the perimeter of the largest operating base in Afghanistan had about 1,000 to 1,200 soldiers guarding the perimeter. And when I look at Washington, D.C., and I see all of, the troops, God bless them. I mean, these are Americans. That's what I'm telling everyone. Remember, these are our sons and daughters, right, who are out there. They don't want to be out there. They don't want to be staring down Americans with, with their ARs in their hands. When you look at that and you see 25,000, I mean, what are they expecting? Are they expecting a foreign invasion? I don't even know what's going on here.
No, I made a point last Wednesday of walking around the Capitol and greeting many of those good troops and letting them know that we certainly support them and appreciate that they're there to try and help and protect us. And face it, they don't make decisions about where they are located. That is the leadership that is above them. And speaking of the leadership that's above them, really, I truly believe that this is a showing of force because of the failures of the security that the leadership, including Speaker Pelosi, who was in charge of the security for the House floor, the failure to secure the Capitol properly. And there was a lot of people that suffered as a direct result of that. And so now we've got the pendulum that swings the other way, and they're trying to take, do something about it because of the events of last week.
Well, Congressman, look, you're absolutely 100% right. The pendulum has swung, but there's a lot of concern. I just returned from Florida. I called it the free state of Florida. I feel that way about Montana too. The free state of Montana.
As do I.
It's beautiful country, great people.
I just spent 3 days back there, and it was nice to be back in America again. Let me tell you, where our newly elected governor has moved the restrictions for capacity and for operation of hours of operation from our businesses so that they can actually be productive and profitable again. We have a newly elected attorney general who says that even if the county attorneys are going to try to implement arbitrary and capricious laws to shut these businesses down, he is the top legal authority in the state, and he's going to supersede them and make sure that doesn't take place. Yeah, I was back in America again.
Right. God bless them all. Wow. Thank God. Because the American business owner, the American family, the American worker, everybody has suffered. We have suffered so much, not only loss of life due to COVID, which, I think we still need so much more intelligence and investigation on how this disastrous disease virus spread around the world from China. But not only have we suffered that, we're suffering every single day. I talk to people all the time that are saying, I've lost my business. I'll never have that business again. Or I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to lose, my kids can't go to school anymore. I'm stuck at home. I lost my job. This is horrible what has happened to our country. And now we see this. I got to tell you, I got to ask you this before we move on to Congresswoman Cheney and, as the House GOP conference chair. But I want to talk to you a little bit about former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who was basically fired for lying to the Inspector General, lying to the DOJ. And he basically likens Trump voters to ISIS recruitment. That's what he's saying. He's saying MAGA right wing are like ISIS, comparable to ISIS. I want you to take a listen to this.
So, Anna, I spent years working against extremists, doing counterterrorism work in the FBI. And I have to tell you that sort of a diverse cross-section of people is exactly what you see in the population of adherents, people who are attracted to extremist rhetoric, to extremist movements. That's exactly what you see. When we looked at those Americans who traveled to Syria for the purpose of joining the Islamic State, when you put all those faces and names down in one place, you had doctors, lawyers, you had people who were Muslim their entire life, and some people who had just converted only months earlier. You had rich people, you had poor people, men, women of every ethnic variety. So I think that's actually common to extremist groups. Some people are very vulnerable to and drawn into that core lie of any extremist movement, and that is exactly what we're seeing now with this particular group of Trump supporters.
I was stunned. What does that do to our nation? Literally calling 74 point something million Americans that voted for President Trump ISIS.
Yeah, this is the problem that we are facing right now. And this is why you have so many people, the overwhelming majority of who came out for that demonstration were peaceful, happy protesters participating in our political process. That's all they were.
Right.
Most of them, and you know this, Sarah, most of them had no idea that several hundred people even stormed the Capitol as far as breaking and entering. Okay, they weren't even aware of it. And when you have officials at the highest level of our government that in full public display, it was demonstrated that they committed crimes, and we've not had any charges or any prosecutions. This is the frustration that you see across the nation when you go out there to real America. If you keep yourself in the bubble and you don't know about it, then, okay, you're not seeing that. But when you go out and visit Helena, Montana, and you visit Bozeman, Montana, you visit Great Falls, Montana, that's where you hear about the frustrations where the people at the highest levels of our government and in business are able to go out and completely keep themselves from any type of charge of prosecution, investigation whatsoever. And it's troubling.
It is very troubling because it is the one thing that really harms a nation is when its own people, and gosh, I never thought I'd be saying this about the United States of America, when its own people don't even trust the justice system anymore. It's the reason why so many people from all over the world come here. It's the reason why people in Afghanistan beg and plead when they work with U.S. forces to try to get visas for their families to come to the United States because their system is so corruptible and so corrupted. And now you have Americans saying, wait a minute, is there a two-tier justice system? What's going on here? I got to tell you, I loved your interview with Laura Ingraham on Fox News. It was incredible.
Well, thank you. When you go with somebody who is so good that, and then you're going to be sitting there next to that, it's very intimidating for a lonely freshman like myself, I will tell you.
Oh, I bet. I know Laura's great though. She's really great. And you just kept up. You were so great. And you said so many important things. I mean, very important. I thought, when Laura asked you about should, the GOP, should it leave this kind of populist idea of, the America first, right? And go back to the old Bush Cheney, internationalism, globalism. And you said, no, I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you this, most Americans don't ever want to go back that way. In fact, most Republicans that I know want to change the party altogether.
This is where I say that we hear about this battle for the heart and soul of the party, Sarah. The heart and soul of the party is intact. It has not changed. What we continue to see is this battle for the control of the leadership of the party. But look, I'm 60 years old. I was from the Reagan Revolution. I was there to support and campaign for Ronald Reagan in 80 and re-election in 84. And as good of a president as he was, I never have seen the energy and the enthusiasm and support for a Republican candidate as we have. And I know you haven't since before that for Donald Trump. And so when we had this debate about the control of the heart and soul. No. The people, they are the same. The central committees, the Republican women's organizations, the grassroots supporters, the folks that knock on the doors and make the telephone calls and put the signs up, they have not changed over the last 40 years. What they have been searching for is someone that's going to stay with them and fight hard for them and with them. And so you can take control of the leadership of the Republican Party and possibly other people can accomplish that, but they will not have the heart and soul of the party. Make that perfectly clear.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely 100%. The American people for the first time, and you're right, not even Ronald Reagan. It wasn't even the same. But now we're seeing, the fact that people want to speak up, the fact that people wanted to be involved in politics, the fact that this was for the first time. Here's somebody who actually was listening to the American people, whether people liked him or not. The idea was bigger than President Donald Trump. It was like, we need someone to listen to us. Didn't matter the lowest unemployment rate we saw for Hispanic Americans, for Black Americans, putting businesses first, putting Americans first. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Now you got 10 GOP. You have 10 members of the Republican Party that actually voted to impeach President Trump. And what you're saying came right back to Liz Cheney. She, the Republican Party Central Committee in Carbon County, Wyoming, censured her. She was a GOP star, and now it could be pulled from her, right?
That is exactly right. And here's where I have a problem, and that is everyone can vote their conscience. Absolutely, positively, you can vote your conscience. But when you come out and represent your vote as the leader of the conference, and release that information in such a fashion that it gets displayed and your vote has more weight than another representative, now we have a problem. Okay, so what happened is this entire thing, we know they're trying to impeach the president a week before he's going to leave office anyway, and this is all theater. We know that it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate. This is all nothing more than theater. And Act One was a quote from Liz Cheney, Republican leadership, calling for impeachment. And the Democrats used it against the Republican Party, not just against Donald Trump. They used it against the Republican Party all day long. And for that purpose is why I've got a really big problem and say, how can she effectively lead the conference when she is so out of step and did her best to undermine that very conference that she is supposed to be a leader of?
Well, you're not the only one. I mean, her censure resolution passed in a unanimous vote. 45-member Central Committee voted to censure her. I mean, this is very serious. I mean, her future in the GOP, it looks like it may be gone, especially in Wyoming. My daughter is actually in Wyoming, and I was thinking about that, like how do people feel? People were frustrated, my daughter was saying. She said they were very upset. A lot of the people that she spoke with, they couldn't believe that Liz Cheney voted to impeach President Trump. So I think she's going to be facing a really tough battle in Wyoming now.
Sarah, I have an office in Billings, Montana, which is 90 miles or so north of the border from Wyoming. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of radio stations and information that gets shared back and forth across that border. I had more calls in my office the end of last week supporting me from the state of Wyoming than I even did from the state of Montana.
Wow. Wow, that is definitely something. So this is it, but it's not just Wyoming or Montana. This is across the entire United States. Congressman, people are feeling this way all across our country. They're feeling frustrated. They're feeling more and more divided every day. And before I let you go, I just want to ask you a question. When you hear this kind of rhetoric, what does this mean that they're calling Trump supporters terrorists? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. What is this rhetoric about? And now that, we see that Biden and Harris administration will expand those powers, right? They're going to expand powers to monitor and surveil and things of that nature. Well, that's a pretty frightening prospect for a lot of Americans. What can the Republican Party do?
That is exactly what we have to worry. So I'm reaching out right now to our leadership and saying, okay, we are in the minority, and what are we going to do? What is our plan going forward to try to at least build a firewall so that we can keep this surveillance state from expanding into free speech, because that is where we're heading. I had an additional meeting with my attorney general, which I referenced earlier, newly elected attorney general from the state of Montana. I've got an outstanding relationship with him. We came in as freshman legislators in 2011 into the Montana legislature, and so that he understands that the state's attorney generals very well also are going to be playing a major role going forward to try and help us have a firewall to keep from our civil liberties from being violated going forward. But I will also tell you this, Sarah, I believe in these institutions, and I have an incredible amount of respect for these institutions, and I will be attending the inauguration for the 46th president of the United States on Wednesday, because it is important for us to do that.
Absolutely. I think as Americans, it's important for us to move forward, to move on. And we can't throw, and I said this earlier, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And that goes for both sides.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
We have to remember that our nation is so precious and so fragile. And we can't afford to lose this beautiful country. And we have to hold officials accountable. But we also have to remember that this is a country that's worth fighting for. We've had a lot of people from the beginning of this nation that have given their lives for this country, on the battlefield and to protect it. And we've got to honor that, and we've got to honor each other. And you're absolutely right. I think you're doing the right thing, Congressman. I think, I'm going to bring you back on the show. I have so much I want to talk to you about, the surveillance state and everything. I hope you come back and join us here at the Sara Carter Show.
I will. Listen, thank you so much for having me on, and God bless you and the work that you do for this country. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I really felt like Congressman Rosendale really gets it. He is someone that's going to be, he's a freshman. We're going to be watching him. I'm sure he's going to be so important in Congress, but he's really going to fight for the American people. And he's really going to work hard to ensure, I believe that our rights will not be trampled on. We have to be really careful here, folks. And look what else is happening. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I traveled to Guatemala multiple times over the last few years covering the caravans that were heading towards the United States. Now, there is a caravan with as many as 9,000 illegal migrants or immigrants. However, I guess they're not illegal yet. They're traveling through Central America. They're migrants. They're heading towards the United States. 1,000 of those illegally entered Guatemala. So I've been in touch with some folks, former senior officials from the Guatemalan government. They have been talking to me throughout the weekend, sending me video, sending me interviews with some of the migrants. This is incredible. They believe, and they are saying that Biden promised them that they would be able to come to the United States, and now they're going to hold them to it. They want to come to the U.S. The last time we saw this during the Trump administration, when they were coming across, I remember talking to some of these guys on the Honduran border, and it was just like it was like 1,000 men, right? I barely saw any women, maybe a few hundred women, but a lot of men. And I remember saying, like, why are you coming this way? And it appeared very coordinated. Like, why are you heading towards the United States? Well, we're coming there for work. We want jobs. And I said, Americans are also looking for jobs. And, was somebody telling you that this is okay? Was this promised to you? And they were told, yes, that they were told by the media and by people in their villages. They had heard that the United States, was taking in migrants. And so there's a lot of rhetoric, remember, a lot of confusion down there for a lot of these people, and they're being used. I want you to understand this. A lot of these people that are coming up into the United States are being played with by bigger powers that be, right? You've got Pueblos Sin Fronteras. This is a group that is supposedly a migrants' rights group. I've dealt with them before. They really are not who they say they are all the time. And they're very political. They are, people that utilize and use these groups of people to push their own political agenda, very global political agenda, to bring migrants. And by the way, governments in Central America, even the Mexican government we've seen in the past, not so much right now, not so much with Obrador, which is interesting because Obrador is a socialist, but he had a pretty good relationship with President Trump. But we've seen governments in Central America utilize these migrant flows to try to affect policy in the United States. Now, the Biden administration is saying, no, not so quick. Don't show up. I mean, that's funny. Before it was like all open borders. We're going to tear down the wall. No human is illegal. You know what I'm talking about? Until they come into your yard or your house. This is my thing. And I speak Spanish. My mother was from Cuba. She was an immigrant in the 1960s. She came here on the Johnson Freedom flights. I get it. People search for a better life. I understand that. I've traveled a lot of the world. I've seen poverty and war, and I've seen people in really desperate and dire situations looking for a better life. I understand. Believe me. My heart's been broken many times seeing what's happened to young people, young girls on the border that have been raped by coyotes, by the people that are running them through, the drug cartels taking advantage of children, human trafficking, drugs being poured into our nation. Our children are dying. Our children are dying, folks. Our children in the United States, the drug cartels using that border. All of this is tied together. You don't think these drug cartels are going to utilize those migrant caravans so that they can push them all in one direction and then move their dope in another way? That's what they do. It's diversionary tactics. And there's also a lot of other things at play here. You got to keep your eye on the ball with this, because this is not the last time. This is not the last time. There is going to be floods of people coming in this spring. I am hearing that from my sources. It's going to be a very, very dangerous situation for the migrants and for the people along the border. This is going to be very tough. One of the things that Pueblos Sin Fronteras said, it's actually in a story at saracarter.com. It says, we recognize the importance of the incoming government of the United States having shown a strong commitment to migrants and asylum seekers, which presents an opportunity for the governments of Mexico and Central America to develop policies and a migration management that respect and promote human rights of the population in mobility. That means the people moving. I'm going to translate that for you. You better let our people in, because we're going to be pushing them in that direction. And guess what? We love their remittances, because they dump all the money that they make in the United States. They push it back. They send it back home. Billions of dollars that flow through the banks in these Central American countries and in Mexico. Billions. Not just the drug money, folks. I'm talking about the money that goes back in remittances. Illegal money too, because you know what? There's a lot of people working here that don't have a social security number unless they stole it from someone. Let's just be frank. I talk to people all the time in immigrant neighborhoods, migrant neighborhoods, and a lot of the people who are here legally do not want this to happen. People who have come here legally do not want this. They do not want the MS-13 gang members. They do not want the same problems that they fled when they lived in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. They do not want those problems in their neighborhoods here. And we've seen that. And we've seen that they don't want it. They don't want people shaking them down for money. They don't want gang members in their neighborhoods. They want to live a normal life, make money, and take care of their families. And there are a lot of good people here. There are a lot of good people who are also illegal. But this is perpetuating bad behavior. This is the Democrat policy. And by the way, this was a Republican policy under Bush and stuff, where if you don't hold the line, if you don't have rules, if you don't follow the law, then what are you doing? You're opening the floodgates, perpetuating horrible criminal behavior. Because why are the drug cartels going to listen if we don't stop it? Why would those governments not listen if we don't stop it? No, instead, they send a statement from Pueblo Sin Fronteras, right? Pueblo Sin Fronteras. They're going to tell you that you have to take in all of these migrants and then let them send the money back home. Well, I say no. No, we're not going to do that anymore. Or we're going to expose it. Maybe Biden will do it. I don't know. We'll see what happens when President-elect Biden actually becomes President Biden, how this administration will handle the flood of illegal migrants coming across that border into the United States. Look, it's been a great show today. I know there is so much more that you and I need to talk about, so much more that I would love to discuss with you. I'm going to be bringing on some really important guests on the show in the upcoming weeks. We have an inauguration coming up. We have a nation that is unfortunately truly divided. We are trying to find our way back to each other. I'm going to pray for our country, pray that the inauguration goes off without a hitch, that there is no violence, that we find a way to unify again as a nation. We have to, folks. There is no other place to go. You see all the people trying to come to the United States of America? What happens? What happens if we change? What happens if we lose all of these rights? What happens if we give away all of those rights? What happens? There won't be any other place to go. That's the sad truth. And that's something that we all have to live with. Look, thank you. God bless you. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Remember, we still have a lot of other stories out there that go far beyond. Some of them go all the way into space. I hope to update you on a lot of what's happening with the CIA Black Vault on the UFOs and the unidentified aerial phenomena that our military has been spotting, what the Pentagon has been seeing. I'm going to bring some of our favorite guests back on to discuss that. That's coming up again soon. So let's end this on a high note. Let's all pray for our country. We're going to get through this. I know we will. I know we will. I know we will. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter at saracarter.com. That's saracarter.com. Sign up for my newsletter in case things don't get better and they continue to censor all of us. Who knows? But at least you'll be able to stay in touch with me there. Thank you again. Follow me at Sara Carter DC on Twitter. Please subscribe to the Sara Carter Show at Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking back the story, folks. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. Can you share a little bit with the audience about your father, Dan Weber, and how he founded AMAC and why?
My father formed AMAC after he recognized that the AARP really was not representing his values, and those values were really faith, family, and freedom. And my father believed in America's greatness. He believed that there was what he described as a cultural shift occurring in our country. He thought that the very, very foundation, the Constitution, was being disregarded. And we saw that the power of government was growing and individual freedoms were diminishing, were being threatened. And to get more specific was in 2006 when he said to me that he was canceling his AARP membership. And I said to my father, why would you do that? And he said, well, they've just named Harry Belafonte Man of the Year. And he went on to say that Harry Belafonte had commented to Hugo Chavez saying that George W. Bush was the greatest terrorist threat in America. And my father said something is wrong with that. So he saw the AARP make this sharp left turn. And that was when he said, let's form AMAC. And I said, let's do it.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. You know, for more information, folks, visit amac.org. us/Carter.